look at you with glasses.
Yeah, they're supposed to block the blue. I can't.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely see zero difference other than this annoying shit in my way from looking at stuff. Plus then also my face looks like this. I just thought, what would be better than showing up in the show and looking ridiculous with glasses that I just don't ever wear? Makes sense, right?
It took me a while to get over like reflections in the glasses, like when I've got lighting and I'm on camera, that it was like, oh, that doesn't happen when I'm not wearing glasses. The truth is, I don't actually need to wear glasses while I'm doing this. Glasses for me are distance. Like I can't see things far away, but up close, it's totally fine. I can see perfectly when I take the glasses off. So I could lose them, but I kind of like them.
Do you suppose that we look smarter and like we know what we're saying now that we're wearing?
I don't know. I don't know about that, but I like my glasses.
I think it looks like I am wearing glasses when I'm wearing glasses, and I have no reason to. I thought, so it turns out there are these other buttons that one can press in the computer to take the blue out. It's called the something button. And so I've been using that on my phone. The something button, that is totally what it's called. And I use it on my phone and my laptop. Yesterday I had a migraine that was probably from eating Christmas cookies from my neighbors. They like knocked on the door and dropped them off.
What did they put in those cookies?
They were the little cute peanut butter with a chip, like Hershey's Kiss in it. And I ate 2 of them, and the next morning I felt like I was hungover, and I had like a massive 6-hour headache. And I was trying to do what we do with the watching of the television. I was like, everything hurts. So I was like, well, maybe I'll wear these ridiculous like blue light glasses that are supposed to. It didn't
help.
Like it seems as though they're slightly tinted yellowish, so it should do a thing.
Are they Gunner glasses?
No, there's just some cheap, I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they suck. Maybe that's why they're not working. Maybe the Gunner glasses are the real ones. I mean, they're like $150 or something for those.
Yeah, they might
yellow
be
things.
$20. What are they?
Well, hey, you wanna start the show?
Oh, do we do that?
I think we're good. We can start.
Let's start a show.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Enlightened Couch Potato Show. My name is Nicholas Rave, and this is
Adrianne Gunn, and we are here to help you TV as deeply as you possibly can.
We like to say that our mission is to explore the question how to watch movies and TV for maximum psychological and spiritual development. And the way that we do that is our show usually consists of us just talking about the things that we've been watching and digesting and how we've been leveraging those as spiritual and psychological tools. So, Adrianne, what have you been up to? What have you been watching?
I am looking back to see in my recent. It'd been neat if I'd taken some notes and reminded myself. I'm looking back in my recent week to see if there's something that stood out as particularly healing. Now I know that in our last episode, I really did just go super deep in a Grey's Anatomy hole for a month.
The whole show we talked about Grey's Anatomy.
So, and I was in there a long time. There's like 25 episodes per seasons prior to right now. It's so fascinating to go back and forth between watching things that are like truly broadcast TV, like right now, broadcast TV versus things that are a tight 10 or 13 episode arc, right? So I was looking through my Netflix browsing history and I'm like, I'm back in November. Like there were so many episodes. Like that's all I did. And it was a lot. And I feel a little bit better about life not being trapped in a hospital. But then I was in that like void of not quite knowing what to watch. And yesterday during my epically 6-hour like headache, I was abandoning so many things. There was a Meryl Streep movie that I don't even remember Meryl Streep, Mia Farrow, and not Murphy Brown, because she has Candice Bergen are in some movie where Meryl Streep's an author. Here's the premise. This reminds me a little of one of the things I was complaining about in Grey's Anatomy. The premise is this author, this esteemed author, is receiving an award from like other authors bestow this award. It's not even yearly. It's just like they just decide they need to. But she's afraid of flying. So they put her on a boat that takes 2 weeks to get from New York to like London or whatever. And so she brings her nephew and her 2 oldest friends, except for one of the friends she's got conflict with or something. I don't know. I'm like a half hour in, and I'm fairly certain that this is one of those like non-scripted movies.
Oh.
Because none of the dialogue makes all that much sense or is any good. And it's very, very slow. And I love myself a slow movie.
Man, but it can't all be winners, Meryl Streep.
She's lovely at being who she is in this movie. I don't know what's happening. So I left that one. I did watch a wonderful movie though. Susan Sarandon is okay. I got to tell myself what the heck this movie is called because I don't remember. But it's essentially in the arc of my favorite style of movie, which is sort of slow indie movie style, like an ensemble film of like a family returns or a family gathers or people gather.
Yeah.
For reasons, and it's and then I'm in my favorite version of it if it's like sad bad reasons, like the prodigal son fails epically and then comes back home. This particular one, it is the top of the crop. Family unites to help the mother kill herself.
Whoa!
Yeah! Oh my god!
Wow.
I'm so excited. So Susan Sarandon's character has ALS, I believe. They don't specifically call it out. And she gathers her family for this one last, she's like, one of her arms doesn't work and she's decided, and she and her husband decide that they're going to like have a few days with the family that they chose to show up. And then she's going to drink something and then be gone. Oh, so good. So good. I got to remind myself what it's called.
Can we talk a little bit about why you find that kind of movie enjoyable? Because I had an experience recently.
Yeah.
This is multifaceted. So I brought up a topic on my other podcast, and it didn't go great. And it migrated from what I initially brought up to talking about like horror movies and why I enjoy horror movies. And my co-host did not share my sentiment rather emphatically that he does not like that kind of thing at all. And I don't think everybody needs to like any particular thing.
Yes.
And it did just make me think about why do people like what they like and why are some people like. So I watched something recently. I love horror movies, and we watched Krampus. Oh, I watched Krampus. Do you know what that is?
Well, that's.
I mean, you know what the mythology is, but there's a movie.
Some sort of thing. Yeah.
It's delightful. It's really like kind of scary. It's PG-13, but it is not pulling punches.
Yeah.
And it is definitely a horror movie, but I loved it. It's the second time I watched it, and it was even better the second time.
My favorite Lost Girl episode is one of my favorite Lost Girl episodes is the Krampus episode, because it's a Krampus episode and it's a Groundhog's Day episode.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
They had a little bit of that in the movie. I wonder if that's part of the Krampus legend of some sort. Maybe not.
This is with time.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. I mean, not too much spoilers, but anyway, so I I love horror movies, and I also found myself watching an interview recently with a guy who plays Santa Claus professionally, who has like the full curly Q mustache, and you can just tell that he's a deeply soulful person. And he tells a story about going into a hospital room with a little kid who was not going to make it to Christmas. And he said, well, that's not going to do. We're going to have to make sure that you have Christmas early. So I'm here, and here's a present. And then the kid has a conversation with him, which I will not spoil, but it was so touching. And then the kid dies in his arms.
Whoa.
In the arms of Santa Claus. And the way that he communicates about what happened is it's like an emotional roller coaster. It's an emotional train wreck. It's like getting hit with an emotional truck. Yeah. And he said that he got out of the room as soon as the parents and the paramedics came in, and he said he literally ran. There was so much emotion and so much energy. And he said, I cried for 3 days straight. I came home and I couldn't do anything. And I really enjoyed watching that video. It was touching and moving and powerful. And it made me think about, it made me love more. Right. So what is going on there? Why is that? And why do you like the story about a family coming together to help the mom commit suicide? And what do you think this is? Why do people have this like judgment about what other people like? My mom used to watch movies like that, and I was very judgy about it. And I was very like, what's wrong with you? Why do you watch these depressing movies? But I'm not that anymore. I really think there's wisdom in everything people are drawn to.
Totally. So some chunks of what's beautiful about these kinds of movies for me, and even just you haven't seen Numb, but there are these movies where you catch somebody really cut off from themselves or completely depressed, and it's just like stark and beautiful and slow, and they go from like awful to just slightly better, and I'm like, yay, it's the best movie ever. So some of the deal of the ensemble family thing is when I was younger and had more family that was sort of required to see, they were really challenging people to be around. The whole just like dysfunctional Christmases, because there was just not one event. There were like 3 to 4 of them, depending on the year. And a lot of them were really, really hard. There's alcoholism and mental illness and trauma and abuse and incest and horror shows going on in my family. And everybody's got like a big personality. So one of the things that's great is right now I have like 2 parents. I have other people I'm related to. I don't have any requirements to be around anyone. So I have just a lot of space and levity around holidays and stuff that I don't even have to do them. So like dropping in on other people's family stuff, I get to sort of giggle about it because it's not my current reality. So, I deeply relate to all of these hard, challenging places that people have been in. And for a bunch of my years, maybe until recently, last 6 to 10 years, I was dealing with a lot of depression in my life. So whenever I get to see these movies drop into the truth, these moments of just real stuff, people can't walk in. They don't have the ability to carry on with the artifice that a lot of the world keeps us in, like showing up and doing the dance of, I don't know, dumb bullshit, surface level conversations when the movie just already strips away all that BS and pretense and drops you into this is pretty much the realest moment you're going to have, and you're going to treasure it and remember
that experience of that real moment. That's the thing that you are like, ooh, if somebody can craft a story where it takes me to that place, that is like fulfilling for you.
Yeah, well, and you can't those moments in life where you're either going crazy or you've hit rock bottom or someone's died or someone's about to die. It strips away a whole lot, and worlds get kind of more vibrant.
Yeah.
Time slows down in a kind of way.
Yeah.
And it's somewhat universally understandable, these bits of time in there. When a filmmaker can capture the truth of that and deliver it and just like say it in a line. One of my very, very favorite moments of truth that's captured is in this movie, Myth of Fingerprints, which is one of my favorites. And it's one of these things where the son returns home and it's kind of sad. And we don't quite know what the conflict is, but he's been away. It's Noah Wyle returns home, and his sister, Julianne Moore, plays his sister. And she's talking about, she's just deeply unhappy, you can tell. And there's this scene where she's talking about the phone in her office rings. And she reaches out to pick it up. And then she's searching the desk and then sees her own like name plaque. Because in that moment, she's forgotten who she is and what she's supposed to say right then. And the way she delivers this scene, I'm just like, I know. It's sometimes life is so fucking that, and her state and her like her physiology and her like, and that moment is the explanation for who she's been in the entire movie. And that moment in the movie just made my whole life for a minute. Just that somebody found the way to capture that kind of desperate loss of self.
Well, it seems like when you see something that's so personal to you represented truthfully on screen, that you feel seen.
Yeah.
Even though you're the one seeing something, that you're like, oh, that resembles me.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm not totally clear what I get out of horror movies, but I guess that the chunk up here is trust what you like, and don't let other people yuck your yum. If there's something you really like it with as much gusto as you can muster. Trust that there is something inside of you that is guiding you to this thing and saying, and if we sit there and we judge it and we say, ooh, this is bad, or I shouldn't like this, or I'm ashamed of this, you're kinking the hose.
Right.
You're not getting everything you could be getting out of it.
I imagine I'm not alone. I'm the first human I've heard declare the love for these kinds of.
Oh, I'm sure you're not. I'm sure there are many other people that would say, oh my God, I'm exactly the same way. Or I also love those movies, but for a slightly different reason. Yeah.
I have a friend that I've been trying to get her to jot down. She's got this community she's been connected to. And I'm like, that's totally a movie. Like they always show up at the same time in the summer and hang out at this lake house and stuff. Some people have these. She's got such a cool story. I'm like, oh, and it's like, and I've outlined that here's what happens. So if anybody's going to this place that families go to, so there's always someone who's invited who's brought that didn't need to be there. Someone's always having an affair, and then somebody's always leaving a job or something, and then this happens, and then people connect. It's like, oh, does this happen? She's got real life stories of this, and I'm like, okay, this is totally a movie. Let's write it. Let's make it happen. Because that's one of my favorites too. Is like friends gather. Big Chill is one of these. Friends gather at the place where they always gather, and they catch up with each other, and maybe someone's dying. Have you seen the Big Chill? Is that one of the movies in your?
Who's in it?
I think it's Kevin Kline. I think Jeff Goldblum's in it.
I think I have, but I really can't remember it. As soon as you said Jeff Goldblum, I was like, yeah. But it's getting confused with several other movies. Like
I think even Jennifer Tilly is in it.
Like A Fish Called Wanda and Get Shorty keep coming to mind, and I can't separate it from those. And I know it's probably not the same kind of movie, but
anyway,
Kevin Kline is the best.
You watched a classic movie.
I did. Yeah, we can keep this brief. A couple weeks ago, we watched The Jerk. And the main takeaway that I had this time was I had heard somewhere that this story was either intentionally or unintentionally, but I heard that it was on purpose, that Steve Martin wrote The Jerk as a film adaptation around the tarot card, The Fool.
Oh.
The archetype of the Fool.
I love that. That makes sense.
And another movie that often gets brought up when people are teaching tarot archetypes is Being There. Do you know that movie? Peter Sellers. It's a classic.
I don't know if I've seen that. It's possible I have.
Yeah, there's definitely a similarity, although The Jerk is is funnier, I think, and more edgy. But yeah, I mean, he's freaking hilarious. I love that that it's this simple story of like a person going out on their adventure, but it's like a funhouse mirror version of the thing. Everything's just wackadoodle. And it's so bordering on surreal.
Coming to America is not that different. It's that like fish out of water, coming of age, trying to find your special purpose or sow your seeds.
The humor is much more accessible than The Jerk. Like The Jerk was hard for me the first time I watched it when I was a kid. I was like, I don't get this. Is this funny? And like now watching it, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah, and it did help me to start looking for like deeper symbolism around the concept of the Fool. Then anybody well versed in the tarot, please forgive me. I'm going to do a terrible job here. But the Fool is the beginning. And the Fool is represented by the number 0. And typically, if the card is drawn correctly, quote unquote, he's looking up, but he's about to step off a cliff. And he's holding all of his belongings, which isn't very much. And then there's a little dog, which is, I think, supposed to represent the unconscious mind, like biting at his heels. Shithead, exactly. So there's this idea that the Fool is necessary for any journey, because if you knew everything you were going to have to go through on your journey, you wouldn't go. Right. And so every great adventure, every adventure worth going on necessitates a Fool to go on it. And I love that idea.
Not in Joseph Campbell, is it?
Maybe. I'd never heard Campbell talk about the tarot specifically.
Well, right, but just this idea of the level of foolishness or innocence that one needs to be on before they even embark on a journey.
Oh, no, definitely. He talks about that for sure. Yeah, okay. He talks about the naivete of the hero and how that is why he has to go on the journey, because he has all these lessons that he needs to learn that he doesn't know that he doesn't know. And in that sense, he's ignorant and he's a fool. And going on the journey is the thing that will transform him into someone who is wise. And my favorite interpretation of tarot is that it's not meant to be, first, it's definitely not meant for divination or predicting things. But that one way to look at it is that it's a book with pages that can be put in any order.
Mm-hmm.
the book tells a different story depending on how you put the pages together. And the standard one is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's like 26 major arcana, I think, if I'm getting that number right. I could be wrong. But the primary story, the main one where the numbers just go up, is the journey of the self. It's the journey. It's your journey of personal evolution, everyone's journey of personal evolution, which is also the journey that Joseph Campbell talks about, and is also the journey that we talk about that resonates in stories when it's your story. So yeah, I liked watching The Jerk with that frame of this is like I gave somebody the advice recently talking about Enlightened Couch Potato that watch this movie and pretend that it contains all the secrets of the universe.
Oh, nice. Brilliant.
And they got it. I made them watch The Wizard of Oz. And I was like, watch this movie and pretend that if you studied it hard enough, that there are secrets put in here. And they had to keep them secret. Right. Like other people don't get to know this, but you can find them. What are they? And like that idea that anything contains all the secrets of the universe, because if you study anything hard enough, at some point the only thing you're looking at is you. That's why in Zen they say all the secrets of the universe are in a blade of grass. Not because the blade of grass is special, but because if you look at anything long enough, at some point the only thing you're staring at is you. Yeah.
What I love about The Jerk is having that be one of it was a pretty important movie in my childhood. Many of my friends, we rewatched it together. We were saying a lot of the stuff together. I don't fully remember them. Like, since you told me that you watched The Jerk, I've had the like, I'm buying a nana for you, but I don't know if it's a thermos or something for two. It's a something else though. I don't think it's thermos. I know that my dad and I would yell at each other when we were mad. I don't need anything. Just put this lamp.
But just this lamp. And this chair.
So that was just those lines. I grew up a poor black child, and and that's a little
not you, shithead. That's one of my favorite lines. Then the dog jumps in the bath.
Yeah, it's funny in the movie I watched. Did I tell you what it was? Blackbird. In Blackbird, they sing the same song that is the duet in that.
I adore that moment in that movie when it's just this weird thing, and then all of a sudden they're singing this beautiful song, and it's so sweet, and then she pulls out the trumpet, and my brain explodes because it's like it's funny. And everything's funny up till then. And then they start singing this song and you're like, oh, this is nice. And then they lull you into a sense of like, wow, it's a really good rendition of this. What the fuck is she doing with a trumpet on the beach? It's so good.
Yeah. So one of the things, recognizing that Steve Martin plays such a ridiculously wacky dude since forever.
Yeah.
And then recognizing that he's pretty fucking smart and like I've read some of his books.
Yeah.
He's a fucking genius.
Yes.
And I think I was aware that comedians are smart and not actually that funny in life, that they're generally quite serious, but they know what to do with their intelligence in their comedy. I think I understood that before I recognized, wait, Steve Martin's actually kind of brilliant. When did that happen? And it was prior to like his bluegrass career, which he's quite good at. And I just love how smart his ridiculousness is.
Yes.
Like he's very aware of what moments to play and how far to push them, and the willingness that he had to just be the butt of his own jokes for so long for the pleasure of the rest of us. I'm just thrilled.
Did you read Born Standing Up?
Not yet. I have it. Do I have it?
That was his autobiography.
Yeah.
I read it.
Quoting it.
I loved it. It's wonderful. I mean, one of the things that he says about his comedy philosophy is that he said, I wanted to figure out a way to make people laugh and for them to like distinctly and consciously have the thought, I don't know why I'm laughing. And he said that was one of the like central intentions of his style of comedy, was that he wanted to make people, he wanted to put the punchline in the wrong place.
Yes.
And he wanted to like fuck with the format.
I love that.
And I mean, I think Steve Martin is in some ways like a more accessible Charlie Kaufman or Andy Kaufman, that they're both these like committed to the art and the craft. But Steve Martin was maybe a little less crazy. But yeah, that thing you say, like, I think some comedians like Robin Williams, I think was very good at like just turning it on, and being funny in a life situation. I've heard Eddie Murphy is like that too, that like a lot of comedians will say the hardest they've ever laughed was hanging out with Eddie Murphy. But Steve Martin strikes me as like, I don't know how funny he is in person, but like when you're just hanging out, maybe he and Steve Martin are fucking, or Martin Short are fucking hilarious together when they're like joking around.
Yeah.
But I wonder if Steve is quite serious, and then his comedy is a tool. Like,
right.
I don't know.
I do recall reading Anne Heche's autobiography a while back, and she and Steve had been together bunches of years ago, and it does seem like he's a far more serious dude in life than you might expect. Yeah,
that's what I wondered. But that there is a depth of intelligence to his silliness, but I really like that kind of comedy. Eddie Izzard,
oh my god,
fits into that to me in a like, he's so silly and he's so smart, and that intelligence is infused into the silliness, and it's like, it's a silliness that gives you permission to be silly when you also think you're smart.
Yeah.
Like,
did I tell you? I
can't, in person,
like live. I went to one of his shows live. A friend took me.
Yeah.
And I've seen bits, like some bits of his stuff, like over the shoulder of my dad as I was passing through some room or something, but never watched a whole thing.
Oh.
And his comedy show was like almost 3 hours of him on stage.
Yeah.
It was about 2 more hours than I needed. And he's such a fire hose. He's very like Robin Williams. He's a fire hose. He's very energetic. His brain, even when he's not on his written, he just like goes off on his own tangents and cracks himself up, and then he finally gets back to the thing. But his comedy requires remembering shit from stuff they don't teach in the schools in the US. Like I had to take specific area studies and humanities courses. None of my other, like,
he doesn't dumb stuff down.
No. And he's like, and some of the punchline is like inserting, here's some bit of history, I'm inserting wrong response to that. This is not what happened. I'm grabbing some other thing from history and I'm smacking them together. I'm just like, okay, no, okay, I think that's funny. No, I get that one. I remember this.
Did you know he does shows? Did you know he does shows in 3 different languages?
Yeah. I heard
like comedy in multiple languages has got to be one of the weirdest things, because it's so much about inflection and timing and delivery and accent that
culture too.
Culture. So, and especially his jokes, right? Like there are some jokes that I could imagine being translated easier, but for him to actually figure out how to do almost a different show in 3 different languages, he's a freak. I mean that as the biggest compliment I can imagine. You know about his running?
I think he was doing those like super massive ultra marathons, like the 50-mile.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something like he ran a marathon. He ran like 38 marathons in 40 days.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And he had never exercised by running before this. He got like one of the best running trainers in the world, running coaches, I think it was the guy who wrote Born to Run, and learned how to run correctly and then just pushed himself. I mean, that is a level of will that boggles the mind.
I just remembered now.
Charity. That's the point, is like he had a cause that he was like, yeah, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. I just remembered now that Eddie is now she.
She.
Yeah.
I didn't
or
remember
has
that because
forever been she, because
I don't know. She has been very open about executive transvestite for a number of years. So yeah, I didn't hear that specifically.
Well, we're on it. I had notes many, many weeks ago to talk about, remember when I was very curious? So the actor who had been Ellen Page is now Elliot Page.
Yes.
And months and months ago, I was watching some of their work and really confused about why they're always wearing the same shirt.
Yeah. I do remember this.
I don't know if this new information, elucidates any of that. It's still weird to play multiple roles in different shows, movies, and still wear this like boxy.
I've never
make any sense to me as a costume.
Any actor, regardless of gender, say that's what that's in my rider. If I take this character, I get to wear my own shirt.
Right. And and so multiple, Elliot's playing multiple characters and all these different things, and they seem to wear the same outfits, and that's very confusing to me. Even when they are in the 50s, they've suddenly time traveled and they still have access to I'm still very curious how that's working. And I just thought I'd bring it up just in case anybody gets upset at me for whenever they watch that show, they're like, it's Elliot Page. And I'm like,
that hadn't happened yet.
But
it's still my point still stands.
I still don't understand what costume designer made that choice, or if they were like, no choices, bring your own, wear whatever you want. Great, my character is gonna always wear this boxy shirt, this giant 3 sizes larger than I am shirt.
All right, we were going to talk about Star Wars.
That's truth.
Do you want to start?
So right now, Mandalorian is the current Star Wars thing that people are excited about. So I watched it. I started watching when Disney Plus, it was like the first thing they released, right?
Yeah, one of.
So, okay. Mandalorian seems to be about a sect of human types who are trained with an ethos, and they wear indestructible armor that's important, and they never take off their helmets. There's just, in this universe, there's this, maybe it was a planet where there's these people, so we find, but they're no longer around for some reason, and there's this Mandalorian who is now a bounty hunter going off into the world being paid to do the things that bounty hunters do. They find people and things,
hunting
and they get paid
bounties.
to bring in stuff. And that's where the story starts. Now, this show seems to be very in the style of space Western, very Western. I think there are hints of Kung Fu-ness going on. So Western meets Kung Fu. And there's a lot of crossover anyway in Westerns and Kung Fu, a little bit. They're sort of like paying homage to each other at this point. There's a thing that I've just been very curious about, that only one person's had an idea of like how she watches Star Wars stuff to help me. So there's a thing that no matter which Star Wars thing I've watched, takes me out of the experience, and I don't enjoy them as much as I could. And I'm looking for the primer or the pre-frame that will allow me to enjoy it. Because the first 3 Star Wars films, I was really little when I watched them, and I just didn't watch them again. But I got them enough that Spaceballs was awesome. But I did there's no ethos here about
that might be part
stuff.
of your problem. That's like getting to know the Weird Al version of a song before you actually heard the original.
Well, but I watched the ones before I watched Spaceballs. I was just so little.
That's what I mean, is like you didn't have enough to like fall in love with that story and go on the emotional journey.
Yeah.
And before you got it like satirized.
So here's a curiosity I have. And where you and I were both caught up with the whole season. I don't know if we're going to do spoilers or not. So
I want to talk spoilers.
There seem to be some pretty main substantial characters. And then as the adventures go on, you get on new planets, you go to new worlds, you go to new cities or towns or whatever in the planets. And then there's these like little characters. And I have a sense, it seems like the little characters, Nick Nolte is one of these, Amy Sedaris is one of these, like they're pretty like well-rounded, developed characters, a personality. They're like, they have emotional arcs and things. They're pretty like juicy and fascinating. Whereas the main, more elevated in status characters, for some reason, and even if I'm watching other stuff in Star Wars things, the people I'm supposed to care about the most have the least amount of like emotional depth or facial expression. There's something that's happening where I'm very confused because it just seems to me to be bad acting. It reads to me as bad acting, but it keeps universally happening. So I keep wondering, like, what am I missing in this world that seems to be very consistent? And here's the episode that really pulls it out. So Rosario Dawson is in, I think, episode 6 of season 2. Mm-hmm. And for the first bit of the episode, she's like lightsabering, killing people. And she has this scene where she's talking to maybe a magistrate. These two people, has no facial expression, super stiff delivery of everything she's saying, and everything coming back to her is super stiff delivery of the people she's talking to. And I'm just like, why is this so bad? Why is we are actors saying words that are very important, and here we go in the thing. Yes, you are a person saying a thing. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then like a couple scenes later, the same Rosario Dawson is full of emotions. She's talking to the Baby Yoda thing and has full range. And I'm like, yeah, because Rosario Dawson is a person who has skill sets. What the fuck happened? What is different? And so I started asking in the internet world, like, what? Can someone tell me something that explains this semi-weirdly? Because Katie Sackhoff's character, episode or 2 before, also was, but she's also weird. She talks funny like Chris Evans. She stands really straight. She's amazing posture. Whoever she's playing, she has too much articulation, and that's a her thing. But so I'm watching, okay, maybe that's just a Katie thing. And then we get to this episode with Rosario, who's like stiff and weird, seems like bad acting. And then suddenly she's like, oh my God, she's emoting with the cat connection. I'm like, so what the fuck is in the universe that I don't get? And my friend was like, well, I always approach watching Star Wars as if I'm watching some sort of like something set in like feudal Japan, or something in the, she said something of like, and it wasn't Victorian era, but I don't remember. She said something else British, some time period. Yeah. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, so there's these giant religious sects, there's this resistance and this empire, and these are large structures with dogma that's important, that might have some sort of etiquette, that no one handed me a manual of like, oh, nudge, nudge. These people are from this like strict, tight something. And all I remember is just this really long, you read it scans. And like, do they say, oh, this is a really strict thing and no one's allowed emotions and everybody has to stand? There's a formality that usually, like, I don't know what it is, but it takes me out of the thing because nobody's explained it to me.
Well, I think there's 2 ways to approach the explanation. I think one is within the universe and one is without the universe, like from the storytelling, like movie making perspective.
Okay.
So from outside the story universe itself, I think it partly relates to the thing we've talked about Keanu Reeves. And our theory that I think we're in agreement that Keanu Reeves actually is a good actor. He is just applying his acting skills to being a blank slate.
Okay.
Because that is what protagonist leaves the most room for people to project themselves onto that character and their own experience. And it's one style of storytelling, because obviously you can have, Tony Stark is not a blank slate completely, although he's not a super fleshed out character. He became more fleshed out as the series went along. So I think part of it's that. So from within the universe, did you ever hear Ewan McGregor complaining about acting in the prequels? And he said how much he disliked playing a Jedi. Okay. And he said the reason is because in order to play a Jedi the way George says you're supposed to play a Jedi, you can't be surprised by anything, because they can see the future.
Sure. Okay.
So they have worked to become like a monk of some sort. It's a different religion. It's not exactly Buddhist, but it is a samurai kind of thing. And the feudal Japan is a great idea. It's like, this is not this universe. They are not behaving the way we would normally expect. Mm-hmm. Now, with Rosario Dawson, I think that's the explanation. I think Jedi are not supposed to be emotional. They've actually spent time working to not have strong emotions. With the Mandalorian himself, Pedro Pascal, one of my big takeaways is one of my favorite things about the show is his physical embodiment of that character. I think his acting through his body is unbelievably good. The way he conveys subtle emotions and thoughts through no facial expression whatsoever. I'm just like, that's amazing to me. But I get that. I mean, it sort of goes back and forth. Some of the acting is way over the top, and some of it is way subdued.
And it seems to be a status thing. There's something very consistent about it, because your side characters who are poor people just on some random planet somewhere, they're not in charge. They seem to have a broad range of expression and who they're being. This is what I'm noticing in The Mandalorian, at least.
Yeah. Well, it's also like the straight man in the comedy, like sidekick. There's got to be a foil. What the comedy foil is the term, right? There's got to be somebody to antagonize the straight, like that person. If everybody was just like Mando in the story, there would be nothing would be interesting.
Well, that's where I'm at, because I don't know everybody's like name. So Carano's character, she's got a little snark because she's left. She's rebelled and left.
Right.
Whatever she was, Star Trooper, whateverness.
Yeah, there's a lot to do with her character.
But she's also sort of more of a stale delivery, like a stiff delivery. And then the guy,
Bill Burr, was one of my favorite recurring characters in the show. He had a personality, phenomenal. The
other guy, who's the black guy? What's his name? I don't remember his name. The actor.
The villain?
No. Well, him too. He's weirdly stiff.
Oh, Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers also is a little bit. I don't know, there was consistent kind of stiffness between Carl Weathers, like all of the people who were fighting and not being comic characters.
So when you look at the original trilogy, though, when you think about like Han Solo, is he that way? Well,
here's the thing. I want to go watch them, but I want to like it. So I'm like, okay, feudal Japan. I want somebody to tell me. One explanation is just that like George Lucas had people do a thing, and now everybody's paying homage to that. So if somebody could like give me a framework where I can go like, okay, so that I can go back and watch those and enjoy them and not think, this is kind of bad.
I think I'm wondering if your sense of The Mandalorian is like you're taking things that you've experienced in The Mandalorian and maybe some of the other Star Wars, and you're applying it to all of Star Wars. Because I think the prequel trilogy definitely did what you're talking about. I don't think the original trilogy did it as much, although I know that Alec Guinness, who played Obi-Wan Kenobi, did not like the way that George made him say his lines, because George was like, no, you need to say it flatter. I need you to be like nothing, like no, like just say the line like this, because he wants him to feel like this disconnected, risen above it sort of knight. And he doesn't want him to be engaged. And Alec Guinness was like, this is, and Ewan McGregor said the same fucking thing. He was like, this is so boring because as a character, you don't have emotional ups and downs. So they may be paying homage to that, but the rest of the characters weren't like that, except when Luke then becomes a Jedi, then he goes into Jabba's palace and he says, you will bring Captain Solo and the Wookiee to me. And he's very flat. And that's the powerful Jedi thing is you can't get a reaction out of me.
And that's one man's version of what enlightenment looks like, having never seen the Dalai Lama giggle with Desmond Tutu.
Right. Yeah. I mean, George Lucas bastardized much of the deep philosophy that Joseph Campbell was illuminating in his work. And I have long said that there are some elements to Star Wars, the philosophy of Star Wars, that are actually deep and profound, but it is also George Lucas, who's a filmmaker, not a philosopher, he screwed some of it up. Like he makes people afraid. If you adhere, like, okay, I'm going to be a Jedi. Okay. I'm going to collect everything that they've said in all the movies, and I'm going to create a religion, which is a real thing, by the way.
Oh yeah.
People have totally done that, and it's a religion in Europe, I believe. So, if you want to be a Jedi, fear is the enemy. Hate and anger are the enemy. You have to fight them. And what you and I have both learned is that does not work. Like if you fight fear, you make it bigger. If you try to resist anger and hate, you will give them power and they will only grow more powerful over you. And
anger is ridiculously useful and productive. And when you
in the right context,
can utilize it as it's supposed to be used as an agent of movement. And change, it is fucking powerful.
So there's a lot in Star Wars that I think like we resonate with, or I did when I was a kid, and there was like I wanted to be a Jedi, and it's what drove me on a lot of my philosophical journey. But then I just had to at some point go, oh, this is a movie, and while there may be secret spiritual truths in it that are helpful, there's some of them that are not accurate or as useful. So as far as like how to enjoy Star Wars, I mean,
I want to go watch it and just jump in. I want to find the state to be gleeful and like allow, knowing more that especially George Lucas is it's been weird for me because I know a lot of these actors. I've seen him on other things, and I'm like, where did your canvas go? It's very starkly obvious to me
but it's on purpose. I think it might help for you to go, oh no. So what would a character who acted like this be like? Like if there was a person who was this way, what would they be like? That's part of the frame. Is like instead of going, they wouldn't act that way, going, well, if someone did act that way, why would they act that way? Where would that come from?
When I was attempting to figure out what universal force is happening that creates that sort of structure for this is how people are with each other when they're engaging. And so like, because as an actor, I'm trying to figure out if somebody's, the job as an actor is saying, if I say this thing and do this thing, and these are the responses, what aspects of my life have played their part to make this the most obvious next thing that I do or say, right?
Yeah. Another part of it,
motivation.
Yeah. Another part of it that might be confusing for you and for a lot of people is there's a lot of backstory that they're assuming that some people know. So Rosario Dawson's character, for instance, Ahsoka has been around for like 6 seasons of different TV shows, and she's had a ton of character development, and she was a young Padawan Jedi learner. She was an apprentice when she started, and she was a teenager, and she was wild and brash and emotional. And part of I think Rosario's portrayal was intentionally meant to be a contrast to what she's been through and how much she's gained in maturity. And for her to be like, I'm not going to get angry with the magistrate, but I will be emotional with the little baby. That is, I think, her showing that she's not the hot-headed teenager that she was in the other thing. And if you've seen the other stuff, that would make sense. And otherwise, you have to kind of infer that.
Totally. Well,
she's acting.
I appreciate that's probably tons of stuff that's going on. Like, I didn't even know where we were in the timeline of this universe until the ending of the second season.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, apparently he's still the same age, so that's when it is.
Yeah. And also, I think Boba Fett is probably important.
Yeah. Can I go off on a tangent? And because then we got to wrap this up.
Yeah.
So I had an experience. I have adored this show, like in spite of myself. Like, I am so frustrated with Star Wars because it was my favorite movie series growing up by far. There was no comparison. I read the novels. Like, I was a teenager reading like grown up adult novels about Star Wars, and I had an entire bookshelf full of these things.
Nice.
And I was a super geek. I went to my son's birthday party 2 years ago. It was a Star Wars themed party, and for the grown-ups, they put on a trivia contest, and they made me stop playing before it was over because no one else could get a question right.
Yeah.
I'm not proud of this. I'm just saying it.
A little bit.
Maybe a little. Well, no, that's part of why you just need to know this for me to understand why I have been so burned and disappointed by Star Wars, because I really think that let's just say it this way. No one until Mandalorian has got what I like about Star Wars and tried to do that.
Totally. Okay.
And the Mandalorian has done it so well that every little bit of fan service, which there's a lot, totally works for me. I mean, there's shit you have no idea how deep it is. Like, there's a scene in the first season when a bunch of stormtroopers show up and they get off of this like drop ship. So that drop ship was a toy that the first year, 1977, when Star Wars came out, there was Mattel or whoever fucking made the toys, I don't remember. There was this drop ship thing that they showed in a commercial, or it was on an advertisement, and you couldn't buy it. You could see it, and all the toys were in it, and everybody was like, I want to get the thing to put my guys in, and they didn't make it, and they never made it, and they put it in the movie, they put it in the show just for the hardcore fans to be like, oh my god.
Awesome.
Every single episode has shit like that, and it's
nice.
I could go on and on and on and on about, oh my god, you see that? And it's like Dave Filoni is a genius at treating this thing with respect. And like, I don't care that it's spoon feeding me exactly what I want. I'm like, please keep going because you're nailing it. Now, I will say I had an experience that is relevant to the Enlightened Couch Potato, because for the first time I got way brought out of the story. And we have to talk about spoilers in order to discuss this.
Alrighty.
So I am now working to try to retroactively be able to change the way I responded to the finale of season 2, because I did not like it. And I didn't like it for several reasons that I have now been. I went and watched Kevin Smith's interview afterwards, because he always breaks down stuff like this, and he is so good at the thing that we teach, which is turn off the critical judger and enjoy it.
Totally.
And my judger got fucking like activated, and I was like, it almost ruined the whole show for me.
Ooh.
And I'm like, no, I refuse to let one thing that I didn't like at first ruin something that I have gotten so much joy and pleasure from. And I want to figure out how to flip this.
Yeah. Well, It's an interesting and potentially triggering ending.
Yeah. So the issues that I had with it were a couple things. On the one hand, I thought it was very cool to see. Oh, so spoilers moving forward.
Yes.
So if you watch the show, the whole thing is about they're trying to find a safe place to send Baby Yoda, which if you don't know who Baby Yoda is, you've been living under a rock. So it ends up being Luke fucking Skywalker shows up at the end of the show, and they de-aged Mark Hamill. Was actually Mark Hamill, by the way.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that is like, I see the parallel between this scene of him like badassing his way through all these robots in the hallway as being a reverse to the scene in Rogue One. Did you see that? So there's a scene at the end of this show called Rogue One
with Rave.
Where, what? No.
Is it no?
No,
okay.
Rogue One was a prequel to the original, very first Star Wars. It's like what happened right before that. So there's a scene when Darth Vader, they were basically like, we've never really seen Darth Vader be a bad motherfucker. Like, he's supposed to be like a force of nature. He's supposed to be terrifying. And we've never really seen that. So they have this scene in a hallway where he just mows down like 15 freaking guys. And it's terrifying and awesome. It was one of my favorite parts of that actually made the whole mythology better, because then when you see Darth Vader show up in the very first Star Wars movie, you're like, oh my God, he's threatening, and he doesn't just look threatening.
Yeah.
So to have Luke do this same thing and to be like, oh wow, like he has come full circle, and even the parallel of Vader was killing humans and Luke was killing robots, and seeing him in that outfit again, and seeing the X-Wing, all this stuff I like. And I know why they did it. Like, I really think the reason why they did it is because they were trying to say to all of us fans who did not like the portrayal of Luke, old Luke in the new trilogy, they were trying to be like, we're sorry. Like, I know you didn't like that here. You guys want to see. And first of all, that seems weak to me. Like, if you're gonna say this is where Luke ended up, then don't backtrack on it. The other big thing was the technology. Like, I have seen deep fakes on YouTube so much more convincing than that. And it took me right out. And again, normally I can watch the Never Ending Story now and be like, I can see the wires, but I don't care. And I couldn't do that with this scene. There was just this like, no, Luke, you did. Look at him. Oh, no, you're ruining it.
Yeah. They didn't get the color, the lighting right, the color treatment of the light.
It's like, dude, like, I know you don't have an infinite amount of money like Marvel, but like, Jesus, like, why didn't you use deep fakes? Like, they couldn't, I swear they couldn't. I've seen people take the scenes from Rogue One where they had like a de-aged Carrie Fisher, and they did that versus deep fake, and it's like the deep fake is Carrie Fisher. Like, it's so good. Anyway, there's one last point, and this is the main thing that bugs me, is I'm like, okay, you want me to buy into your story, right? So you're saying that the story is that Luke Skywalker ends up abandoning his Jedi temple, abandoning all the Jedi, and going, fuck this, fuck the Jedi. I'm going to go live in a cave somewhere on a planet until I die. And that is the kind of end of that storyline. So giving baby Grogu to him is a bad story. Like, there's no version of that turns out good. If he goes with Luke, something bad's gonna happen to him. And I'm like, that is the main reason that it bugs the crap out of me, that they had, is like, they already told us where that story goes. So
I don't know that he's there yet. Couldn't he just be like, oh, I sense a Jedi, he's still with the Jedi, then he's still training, and he's with
of
them,
course, that's much later.
And then
he's old and has a beard at the time when he attempts to murder Han Solo's child in his sleep, apparently.
But Grogu's probably fine for a while.
So you think he gets out before shit goes bad? Fine.
Probably, because he's already been trained. He's not going to start from the beginning.
It was like I felt like I missed out on a beautiful moment, a moment that I wish would have brought me to tears, didn't. Now, so that I don't sit here and shit all over the show that I really love, I have to say that I was very happy that I was sitting there going, ugh, Luke Skywalker, Uncanny Valley, and I didn't like it. And then fucking Mando takes his helmet off when he's looking at Baby Yoda.
Right.
And I immediately burst into tears again. And I was like, that was such an earned moment. Like, they had to do something special, because you're like, this is it. Like, the Mandalorian show is not going to be the same. Grogu's leaving, as far as we can tell. Like, this is the end of a storyline. So this has to be something significant and special. How are they going to do it? Oh my God, he's taking off his helmet and he's letting him see his face. Oh my God.
I cried too.
Yeah. So, and then they shift back to Luke's face and he's all,
I am in a computer. Yeah.
I don't know. One theory that was floating around the internet was that it was going to be Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh.
He played a character named Mace Windu in the old trilogy, and the idea of him showing up like old and grizzled and and then you're just like, we don't know what happens. Like, he goes off and they go off and then who knows? And with the Luke thing, I'm just like, I don't know. It's cool crossover, and for some reason that just it was a bridge too far for me. Every other fan servicey thing they've done, I've been with them 100%. And this one just, I couldn't quite take that step. Maybe if the special effects had blown me away, then I wouldn't have minded the story part. Or maybe if the story part hadn't bothered me, I would have been able to ignore the special effects. But for whatever reason, this one, it took me out of a show that I have been so into.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it's an interesting choice too, to have to wink at the fact that, like, you just put Grogu on this like seeing stone, and then a Jedi might sense him and things could happen. But what's interesting in the storytelling arc of the story of the Mandalorian is that you have now erased, for the season finale, you erased all of the agency of all of the badasses who are in that ship. They don't find a way. Someone else comes, someone else who's not even part of any of the 2-year arc, comes and saves their ass. And that's fine. I guess it's not my story that I'm telling.
Yeah, they got themselves into a place that they couldn't. That's called Deus Ex Machina, right? Like when something shows up and rescues your characters randomly.
Right.
And they always say, I remember Pixar has a rule that says chance can get your characters into trouble, but it can't get them out.
Right. Yeah.
And they're like, if something random happens and it gets them into trouble, that's fine. You can use that as a storytelling trope, but you can't just have it has to be volition on their part. It has to be some action they take that gets them out of it. Now, technically, putting him on the stone did draw Luke there, but they weren't counting on it. And they really did get themselves into a dead end situation. And then random chance saves them. So
it's an interesting way to end something that is specifically supposed to be this. And it makes sense that this other, like, the whole thing is about trying to find someone to give him to. And that's the way that it actually does work, to have this like random savior show up. And that's cool, because they were trying to hand him over and find his people. And so, they found his people. So it works out that way. It's also just a little weird that here you have, 5 or so badasses who didn't find their way out of this situation.
Yeah.
And that's a little hard, given that
it is a weird letdown. I wish that I enjoyed it more. And I also feel like I see a lot of like missteps that weren't there in the rest of the show. Mm-hmm. There's certainly, like, I'm not saying the show is a freaking masterpiece.
Right.
I'm saying the show is written for me. And
Totally.
I'm like, I don't care that it's not a masterpiece. This show is I'm like, yep. Check.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I love it.
Yeah.
And I just, it was weird to have that experience of like, and I'm so ready to jump back in again. I don't think they'll do it again, but it just felt like the wrong choice for me personally. And I know other people didn't feel that way. Yeah, it was disappointing. It was disappointing in a show. And I wanted to reflect that I had a hard time doing the Enlightened Couch Potato process in that moment and letting myself sink into it and just go with the story. Right. I was like, but what about, and yeah. Yeah, it's a skill, and it's clearly one I'm still trying to learn how to develop.
Well, and that's why I was trying to ask for the like, okay, how can I jump in and allow myself to like take this in? Because for me, both seasons, I was just very distracted, and I couldn't drop in emotionally to like the endings, the last half of both seasons, the last of the first season and the last of the second season, where finally there's like, it's hard for me if there's no emotions, people aren't showing themselves on their face. You've got a lead character who doesn't have a face at all. Yeah. And he's like wandering around alone doing some shit. And I'm like, there's weird animals and cool, it's mountainy, there's a planet. I don't fucking care about anyone. And that's hard for me.
But you didn't care about Baby Yoda? Like, I feel like that's why they put him in there. Thing.
Once Yoda's there, I was like, oh, well, Yoda's adorable. That's great. And then I'm like, all this other shit happens. Yoda wants a ball. Yay! Yeah. But that's like 3 seconds. I found that the first scene that I really loved, I don't know. I think it's season 2. No. It's the ending of season 1. There's these two, I'm just going to say troopers because I don't actually know their names. Star Troopers.
Oh, when they're like joking like back and forth and stuff. You know who that is? Yeah, that was like, Jason Sudeikis and another comedian.
That scene of just waiting on those like floaty bikes.
I love that stuff.
Is the best fucking scene of the whole anything that happened. Yes, I cry at the end, but like I actually like paused and started like cheering. I was like, oh my God, something amazing just happened.
I loved that those little moments give you so much more context for the whole universe, because you just imagine every stormtrooper you've ever seen is having those conversations. And then you're just like, oh, there's so many things about the show that I love. And I wish that I'd had time to talk about all that. I need to go.
Okay.
But I did want to talk about the fact that and maybe it's too much attachment. Maybe that's part of what creates that getting sucked out of it is I cared too much. And if I had just been like lower your expectations with certain shows and like you go into it and it's like, oh, that was cool. Yeah, whatever. And then you can really enjoy it. And if I'm like I want it to be a certain way and then it doesn't end up that way, then I have a harder time just surrendering to what the storyteller wanted to do.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. So TV deeply with lower expectations.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out and chatting with me.
Yeah, man. So any assignments between now and next time?
I was thinking we should both watch Die Hard and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Oh, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is definitely, yes. I've seen Die Hard like 50 fucking times.
I haven't seen it in like 30 years.
I've seen it so many times. But you watch that. Okay. I'll watch Kiss Kiss Bang Bang because that was the Christmas movie that I had forgotten. And I know that Faye has not seen it, so it'll be perfect.
Hell yeah. Okay. That's our assignment.
Great. I'll see you next week. Have a lovely Christmas. Bye, everybody.